The dock workers noticed something unusual floating far out in the water. At first, they thought it might just be a boat drifting away from shore, but as it slowly got closer, the men saw it wasn't a boat at all. Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The surface was shiny and curved, reflecting the bright sunlight across the harbor. From a distance, some assumed it was just debris carried in by the tide, maybe a fishing net or even part of a capsized vessel floating by. Yet the object looked too round, too smooth. Its pale blue color caught everyone's eye, standing out sharply against the darker water around it as it drifted nearer. The men working on the dock exchanged uncertain glances. Nobody could quite place what it was, though all agreed it seemed much larger than anything ordinary. One worker finally muttered that someone had to check it out. After a pause, another nodded, grabbing a small rowboat to paddle closer to the strange balloon-like shape. The man in the rowboat pulled slowly toward it, careful with every stroke of the oar. His co-workers leaned forward from the dock, watching his every move. When he finally reached the object, he stretched out the oar and gave it a cautious tap. The sound echoed strangely, as if bouncing inside something hollow. Suddenly, the balloon-like object moved slightly in the water, almost like it had shifted from the inside. The man quickly steadied his small rowboat, gripping the edge. From the dock, the others shouted nervously. Nobody knew what could make something that size move. The man near it froze, unsure if he wanted to touch it again. He called out that it was sealed, with no clear openings. The surface looked like thick fabric, tightly stitched together like a parachute or some kind of cover. His voice carried back across the water, but it did little to calm nerves. The workers kept staring, worried the giant thing might suddenly burst or sink. One worker quickly made a call to the harbor authority. Within the hour, a larger vessel arrived with ropes, equipment, and men ready to help manage the object. They circled it carefully, throwing ropes over the sides and tying them down. Slowly, they began hauling the enormous balloon closer to shore, straining under its heavy pull. Up close, its scale was staggering. The balloon dwarfed the fishing boats, looming above them like a massive dome. The men couldn't believe it had drifted in unnoticed. Onlookers gathered along the dock, whispering to each other. Some suggested they should cut it open right away, while others warned it could be dangerous and best left untouched. Just as the argument grew louder, a sudden hiss broke through the air. Everyone froze in silence, their eyes darting back toward the balloon at the dockside. The sound lasted only seconds before stopping completely. Water slapped quietly against wood. Nobody moved. It was as if the strange object had breathed, then gone still again. A braver worker finally stepped forward, crouching near the base of the object. His hands brushed the fabric until he felt something odd, an overlapping seam tucked under folds. He called for tools, and soon knives and shears were passed to him. Everyone crowded around as he began to carefully slice along the thick line of stitching. The fabric resisted at first, but slowly gave way under the pressure of the blade. Each slice opened the seam a little more, making the crowd tense. Everyone leaned closer as the cut widened. The heavy stitching revealed layers beneath, folded over each other, as if whatever was inside had been carefully sealed away for travel. When the seam opened enough, a faint odor escaped. It wasn't strong, but stale, damp, and unpleasant enough to make some of the men wrinkle their noses. The worker cutting stopped for a moment, glancing nervously at the others. Nobody spoke. Finally, one voice urged him to keep going, to see what was really inside. The opening was wide enough now for someone to shine a flashlight inside. A beam of light pierced the darkness, bouncing off the curved walls of the balloon. What they saw at first was unclear, just shifting shadows that stretched strangely against the curved material. Someone muttered. It almost looked like something inside had just moved. The crowd gasped, pulling back instinctively. Some shouted warnings to stop, fearing something alive might be trapped inside. For a moment, nobody dared step closer to the gaping opening. Then, slowly, the worker with the flashlight leaned forward again, steadying his hand. "It's not moving," he said, but his voice wavered, betraying more nerves than confidence. Another worker grabbed the shears and widened the slit further. The material was thick, stubborn, but the blades eventually tore through, peeling the balloon open bit by bit. The smell grew stronger now, damp and musty. Still, curiosity outweighed hesitation. One by one, the dock workers leaned forward, desperate to understand what was really inside. At last, The light from the flashlight caught something solid, wooden edges, rough and weathered, stacked tightly together inside the balloon. For the first time, shapes became clear. "What is that?" someone whispered. Another leaned closer, confirming it looked like crates. The discovery spread through the group quickly, stirring more questions than answers about what they had found. The men argued in low voices. Some insisted the crates meant smuggling, while others warned against touching anything further until proper authorities arrived. The dock buzzed with nervous tension. Finally, one man climbed closer, determined to settle the debate. He reached inside, struggling against the heavy fabric, and managed to grip the edge of a wooden crate. With help from two others, they tugged it free. The crate scraped against the opening until, with a final pull, it dropped onto the dock with a heavy thud. The men crouched around the crate, brushing their hands along the rough surface. Faded black letters stretched across the wood, written in a language none of them recognized. Everyone murmured, guessing at origins. Some thought it looked Eastern European. Others said Asian. The mystery only grew heavier. What was a balloon like this doing in their harbor? One worker fetched a crowbar from a nearby toolbox. With a few loud cracks, the top of the crate gave way, splinters flying as the lid came loose. The crowd pressed closer, holding their breath. They expected danger, but what they saw inside was ordinary. Rows of tightly packed cans, still sealed, labels peeling from dampness. The men returned to the balloon's opening, shining their flashlight deeper inside. More crates lined the hollow space, stacked in rows and pressed tight against the walls. Each one appeared similar, marked with the same faded letters. Dozens of them had been packed carefully, as though meant to travel long distances without ever being discovered. Another crate was opened, revealing bottles of water and dried food sealed in wax. Someone muttered that the supplies looked military-grade, built to last through months without spoiling. This discovery only confused the workers more. Why would preserved supplies be hidden this way? And who had gone through so much effort to float them into port? The men began connecting pieces out loud. The sealed balloon, the hidden seam, the stacked crates of preserved food. It looked less like lost cargo and more like intent. Whispers spread across the dock. It had to be smuggling. Someone was using the sea, drifting these balloons across waters filled with supplies that no one would question. By now, more locals had gathered, drawn in by the commotion. Rumors flew quickly, some saying it was a military stash, others claiming it was stolen humanitarian aid. Phones were raised, pictures taken, and voices grew louder. But through it all, the workers kept staring at the strange balloon, uneasy about what they had uncovered. Soon, uniformed officers arrived, alerted by the earlier calls. They moved quickly, securing the area and pushing back the crowd as they inspected the balloon and its hidden cargo. The workers stepped aside, relieved to let professionals take over, but their eyes lingered on the crates stacked inside, knowing they had uncovered something much bigger than expected. One officer lifted a crate, brushing dirt off the markings. He nodded grimly, confirming what the dock workers had already guessed. These were smuggled goods disguised and floated by sea. It was a clever operation, hiding supplies in an inflated shell instead of a ship. The balloon had slipped across waters, avoiding ports, patrols, and customs along the way. The dock fell quiet as the truth sank in. What began as a harmless-looking balloon had turned into evidence of an organized smuggling route hidden in plain sight. The men exchanged wide-eyed glances. They knew they would never forget the day curiosity turned into discovery, when their simple harbor became the scene of a hidden crime. The balloon, once mysterious, now seemed almost ordinary. The mystery was solved, but the image of it drifting silently into port lingered in everyone's minds long after that day. For the dock workers, the discovery was unforgettable. They had simply noticed something unusual in the water, only to uncover a secret no one had expected to find inside.